He said at least an hour. Hang on, guys. I'm trying to start recording this for the absent.
I don't think JC that Mr. Monday.
Come on, stupid thing. Hang on. Let me try to get this sorted out first. Okay. There we go. All right. Study guide. Yay. First of all, you need to understand that these first three things that you see up here, right, the first three things on the study guide, right, those are going to show up continually. So they're going to be in a short answer question, right, but they're also going to be in multiple choice format, right? So you're going to see some of these concepts showing up multiple times, right? The first one is democracy, direct democracies versus indirect, right? Remember, indirect is also known as representative democracy, right? That's what that means, indirect representative, right? And remember, direct democracy was found in Athens, right? Ancient Greece. So make sure you write that down, right? Direct democracy, ancient Greece, Athens. The other one, indirect or representative, that was the Roman Republic. Okay, don't forget that. Direct democracy equals Greece. Representative democracy equals Roman Republic. Okay? Yep, you're going to take notes on this, right, for the test tomorrow. You're filling it out. Cece, come on. You got to pay attention, okay? All right. Okay. I'm not going to keep repeating it, one of the things over and over again, because then we're not going to get through the study guide. Okay. So remember, direct democracy is ancient Greece. Right? The people make the decisions. They vote on the laws. Right? Indirect is also known as representative democracy. Right? That's what we have here in the United States. Right? That came from Rome, the Roman Republic. That's indirect. Remember, in a representative or indirect democracy, you elect officials, you elect representatives to make decisions for you. Okay, that's the main difference. One of them has elected officials, the other one does not. The Persian Wars and the Peloponnesian War. Okay. How do they lead to Greek unity and conflict? Hey, remember, Greece was divided in city-states. Athens was its own separate country. Sparta was its own separate country. Okay. That's how it leads to Greek unity. The Peloponnesian War, remember the Peloponnesian War is what so really pay attention to the first one, right? The Persian Wars, okay, that establishes Greek unity because to defeat Persia, Greece has to unite. All of the different city-states have to come together to defeat Persia. Okay? That's crucial in the history of Greece. Right? It makes Greece one country, and now the people there start thinking of themselves as Greeks, right? Not as Athenians or Spartans, right? But as Greeks. The fall of the empire, of the Roman Empire. Who remembers one cause? When did Rome fall? And Zeus. Hey, the rise of Christianity completely disrupted the religious control that the empire had. Right? It challenged Roman rule because Christians would not follow the religious rules. And Christianity, the spread of it, is one of the causes of the fall of the Roman Empire. Okay? Remember also, there was massive economic problems. Depression followed by inflation. So economic problems as well. That's going to be your short answer question, and you have to list 5 causes. Right? So we have the spread of Christianity, we have economic problems, okay, and we have the loss of agriculture. Right? What do the German barbarians do? And if you remember our notes, they first attacked Roman farms. They poisoned the ground. Right? They would attack farms to make sure that the Romans didn't have a good food supply. Your people can't survive, let alone fight. I think the food supply is destroyed. So the barbarians did that. That's one of the reasons. The barbarians are also effective. They invade Rome from all of its northern border, right, and in the east. The barbarian tribes invade Rome. They sack cities, they destroy cities, they burn cities, and eventually they're going to attack the city of Rome itself. Okay. So the German barbarian tribes provide 2 of the reasons. They attack agriculture and they attack itself. Now there's one more. What's another reason? It has to do with the army, with Roman soldiers. What happened to them? Remember, Jack? Yeah, they lose faith and loyalty to the empire. They lose faith and loyalty to the empire. They're no longer fighting for the glory of Rome. They're fighting because they like their general and because they're getting paid. Right? So there's not a lot of motivation on the behalf of Roman soldiers to continue fighting all the time. There's a decrease in patriotism and a decrease in loyalty to the empire. Instead, soldiers are looking to their general, not to the glory of Rome. Okay? There are 5 causes there. Okay, we just went over them. All right? Okay, let's go over some of these vocabulary terms. Remember, that's the first page, right? The matching section. Okay? That's where these words are going to show up on that first page of that matching. What's a bureaucracy? Bureaucracy is where you have a system of officials, right, who abide by rules, right, and who abide by a system of procedures. Okay, so you have appointed officials who follow strict rules, who have established authority, and who have established procedures, right? That's bureaucracy. Okay? In order to get this done, you have to go through this step, talk to this person, right? That's bureaucracy. Okay? So there's a system of appointed officials, right, who operate in a, let me cross this out, who operate with fixed rules, right, in a system of authority, right, with a system of procedures. Okay, that's a bureaucracy. There's bureaucracies everywhere. What's an aristocracy? Who remembers that term? An aristocracy. Jack, you got an idea? Yes. Okay. Noble landowners who rule together. But the key term in that is noble. It's not just rich landowners. You have to be noble to rule in an aristocracy. Right? You have to be an aristocrat. You have to be a lord. That is key in the government system of aristocracy. Okay? So noble landowners who rule, they rule the government in an aristocracy. So again, look for the key term noble for that definition. Yes? For some of them, yeah. I'll get to that. Good question, Patrick. Okay. But first, let's just cover the definitions. Okay. Okay, so aristocracy, right? Noble landowners, noble families are the ones who rule. Right? Polis, that's just the word in Greek for city-state. Right? Polis. Okay, the fourth one down. Polis is just the word for city-state. We'll get to oligarchy later, okay? Polis is the Greek word for city-state, right? An example of a city-state is Athens, right? Is Sparta. Those are examples of city-states, of polises. The Peloponnesian War, right? That was the war fought between Athens and Sparta, right? The rivalry comes to a head. One of them is going to be the dominant military power after this war, and that is Sparta. Right? Sparta defeats Athens in the Peloponnesian War. How does Sparta win? Well, we know that Sparta has the best military, right? Their entire society is structured towards military training, right? That's how they win, right? So if you get a question, how did Sparta win the Peloponnesian War? How did they do it? Right? It's because they have a dominant military. They have a military culture where that's the most important thing. Warfare. Huh? Dominant military. Right? That's for Peloponnesian War. That is why Sparta won. Okay? Okay, now let's go back to oligarchy, right? The third term down there. Oligarchy. It's also a system of government like an aristocracy, except in an oligarchy, it's the nobles don't rule, right? It's just a small group of rich individuals. That's an oligarchy. Okay, they tend to be merchants or traders, right? But they're not nobles. Right? In an oligarchy, rich people, a select few rule, but they're not nobles, as opposed to an aristocracy where they are nobles. Okay, that's the key difference. Aristocracy and oligarchy are very similar, except in one of them, you have to be a noble. Okay? All right, so an oligarchy, again, it's just a select few of rich merchants, okay? Rich individuals. A republic. What is a republic? What's a republic? All right, Rome has a republic. What's the key difference, again, that we just talked about between Rome and ancient Athens in democracy? Patrick, what do you think? Which one though? Right, we just talked about it. Direct or indirect? No, indirect, right? Representative, okay? Republic is when you elect officials, right? You elect representatives to make the decisions for you, right? This is what we have in this country. We have a republic. Right? We elect leaders and they make decisions for us. Okay? That's a republic, okay? Leaders are elected. Okay? Again, leaders are elected. Okay? In Rome, during the Republic, there is something called a Senate. I remember, and the Senate was that group of 300 elected lawmakers in Rome. 300 men, right, in the Senate chambers. They were the elected officials in that republic. Right? That's the Senate. 300 lawmakers in Rome. And that's what we're talking about here for the Senate. A group of 300 elected lawmakers. All right. What about gladiator? What was a gladiator? And what were they? Right? Did they have a choice? No, right? They were slaves. Okay. Gladiators were slaves who were used for entertainment purposes, right, in combats, right? Killing people. Right? People would go watch gladiators fight, die, kill each other. Okay? They were slaves, though. That's the key thing. Okay? There was no one that, actually, there was a few people in Roman history who actively wanted to be gladiators and became one, but they had to give up their freedom to do so. That rarely happened, but it did occasionally happen. Most people were captured slaves, people who lost battles, who lost wars, they were turned into gladiators. Okay? So they were slaves. They didn't have an option. The only way out was keep winning and winning and winning until you get your freedom or die. Okay? Monopoly. What is a monopoly? Right? Not the game. Okay? But what is the concept of a monopoly? You gotta guess, Jack? Yes, right? You have exclusive control of a certain commodity or a service, right? Or over the production of something, or you control everything. Right? If JC owns all of the grocery stores in Yakima, he has a monopoly over grocery stores. Right? Everything is under his exclusive control. That is a monopoly. Okay? We have exclusive control over a service, over a commodity, or over the production of something. What was the Pax Romana? The Latin term. Pax Romana. You remember, Jessica? Who can help her out? Talina, what's up? All right, literally, Pax Romana means the Roman peace. Roman peace. That was the golden age of Rome, right? Where there wasn't as much warfare, and Rome was at its largest in terms of its empire. Right? But literally, that term means Roman peace. Right? Pax Romana. Remember the Silk Roads, right? These were trade routes that connected, right, the Roman European Empire to different parts of the world, especially Asia. Remember, India traded a lot of spices on the Silk Roads. Buddhism spread on the Silk Roads. Right? It's a system of trade routes where spices were traded and where religion was spread. Remember, that's how Buddhism spreads out of India and into the rest of Asia. So, but remember, they go from the Roman Empire, from Rome, all the way into Asia, places in India and places in China. Assimilation. What does that mean? We talked about it when we talked about China and what they did to their minority groups when they tried to unify the country. Patrick. Yeah, and that's the key thing, to get them into your own culture, right? It's minority and marginal cultures absorb, right? They absorb the dominant culture, right? It's often not willingly, right? They're forced to adopt and absorb the dominant primary ruling culture. Right? That's assimilation. Right? Remember, the Chinese, the Han Chinese, do this in China. Right? They force minority and marginal groups to adopt the Han Chinese culture. An edict, right? That is just a law, right, passed by an emperor, passed by a ruler, but it comes directly from the ruler, right? An edict, okay? A law, a public announcement, right? A policy, right? But it's made official because it comes from the ruler. That's an edict. What's the difference between a matriarchy and a patriarchy? Yeah, what you got? Yeah, in a matriarchy, right, in a society that has a matriarchy, the women have the important principal roles. That's a matriarchy. The women have the most important and the principal roles in that society. In a patriarchy, it's the opposite. Right? The men have the important and principal roles. Okay? So matriarchy, right? Women, patriarchy, men. Okay? Most societies in human history have been patriarchies, but there are some, right? There are a lot in different parts of the world that have matriarchies, that had matriarchies, and some that still have matriarchies. What about diaspora? What does that term mean, a diaspora? We talked about it. We talked about Judea and Israel and the Roman Empire. Jack. Remember, that is when, yep, the Romans forced the Jewish people, right, to leave their homeland. Right? The Roman soldiers forced the Jewish people out of Judea, out of Israel, and they have to go to other places in Europe and in North Africa. That's diaspora. Right? That is why, right, by the time Hitler comes around in Europe, there are Jews in places like Germany, in places like Poland, and all over Eastern Europe, because the Romans forced them to leave, right, and migrate to other areas. Pope. Right? Pope, right, we need to know that the popes are also known as the bishops of Rome. Right? That was the first title of the papacy. Okay? Before the papacy came about, right, people who were the primary religious leader in Rome, right, they were simply the bishop of Rome. And to this day, that's the first title of the pope, right, the bishop of Rome. Okay? Eventually, though, right, we know that the Bishop of Rome becomes the most important figure in the Christian church and is known as the Pope. But originally, right, the bishops of Rome. Right, so then a bishop, we should know, right, is a religious leader who is in charge of a particular region. Bishop, a religious leader who is in charge of a particular region. Okay, we're going to skip over Hellenistic. Okay, we're going to go to Greco-Roman. All right, what is that term talking about? Greco-Roman. Jack, what you got? The mixing, right? That's the key thing. The mixing of Greek and Roman traditions. Okay, the Greco-Roman culture. It's a mixture of these two classical cultures. Right? That's Greco-Roman. And then right below that, we have the term phalanx. Remember, that's the Greek fighting style that allowed the Greeks to have a military advantage over the Persians. Remember, the Persians outnumbered the Greeks. Right? The Persians had thousands and thousands of soldiers more than the Greeks, but the Greeks had this phalanx style that allowed them to even the odds on the battlefield. Right? They structured themselves in such a way that allowed them to have a military advantage in terms of fighting style. That's the phalanx. And if you go to especially Southern Europe today, you will see a lot of old Roman aqueducts. Okay, what was the purpose of these aqueducts? Why did the Romans build them? What was needed? What were they trying to transport? Do you remember this one, Jessica? Aqueducts, right? There's the word aqua in there. So what do you think that refers to? Huh? Water. So what do you think they were doing with the water? What are they trying to do? Who can help her out? That's something to do with water, right? It's the ancient world. So what do you need to do? Jack? Yes, right? They're sort of man-made canals that took water from one place and brought it to cities. Right? That's the purpose of an aqueduct. Okay, if there's a water source miles and miles away from your city, how are you going to get that water into your city? Through an aqueduct. And again, you can see the ruins of these all over Southern Europe today. Okay, and inflation. Okay, and inflation is an economic term. Remember, that's one of the causes of the fall of the Roman Empire. Okay, and it's when the value of money declines, and prices go up. They rise out of control. Okay, inflation. The key thing is money loses its value. Okay, that's an inflation. After World War I in Germany, to buy a loaf of bread, right, you needed 5 million bills. Right? Why? because the money was worthless, right? It was a massive inflation where the value of money was worth nothing. Okay, so you needed that many bills just to buy a loaf of bread, right, in post-World War I Germany. 5 million bills for bread. Right, that's an extreme example, obviously, of an inflation. Okay, let's go down to the historical figures. Okay, and you'll see there it says in parentheses, match with culture or significance. Okay, why the hell is the Buddha important? Why do we care about him? What did he do? JC, you remember? Okay, well, he's the Buddha. So which religion do you think he created? Buddhism, right? Millions of people in the world today are Buddhists. Right? That's pretty darn important. Right? And it all starts with him, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. Right? He literally creates a religion. Okay? People who are Buddhists have him to thank. Right? The Buddha, originally known as Siddhartha Gautama. Okay? That's why he's important, right? That's the significance, and that's the culture. Right? The Buddha creates Buddhist culture. Confucius, also Asian, right? Him from China, a Chinese scholar, a philosopher. And remember, his primary thing was that relationships are key to moral teachings. Right? In education, and when we're raising our children, Confucius says we need to remind them of the importance of relationships. Relationships between parents and their kids, relationships between brothers and sisters, relationships between friends, all of that. If we have good relationships, we can have a peaceful and harmonious society. Okay, that's Confucius, Confucianism. So what's the culture? Chinese. Okay. Why is it significant? Because this directly changes Chinese culture, the teachings of Confucius. Remember, he's a Chinese scholar, a Chinese philosopher. Homer. We're talking about the Greek, right? The Greek poet Homer, not Homer Simpson. What's up, Patrick? Right? Remember, he writes the Odyssey. He writes the book also called the Iliad, right? And he's a Greek poet, right? And he was blind. Okay? He's a blind Greek poet who writes epic stories, the Odyssey and the Iliad. What's up? Yeah, right. Good job. I remember when the Dorians take over in Greece, just like Jack was inferring to, Greek culture was on the decline, and through him, through his writings, Greek culture is preserved, right? Saved. That's Homer. Alexander the Great. Who was he? Who was Alexander? What does he do? Jack. He conquers the Persian Empire, right? For the first time in world history, the first time in world history, a weaker, smaller nation led by Alexander the Macedonian, all right, and the rest of the Greeks conquer, supposedly at the time, the world's largest and most powerful empire, Persia. Okay, that's why he has that at the end of his name, Alexander the Great. Right? He conquers Persia, and he's a Macedonian conqueror who destroys the Persian Empire. Right? And he spreads Hellenistic culture. Socrates. What does Socrates do? Or what was he, I should say? What was Socrates? Cooper. Yeah, a Greek philosopher. Okay, remember, and he teaches people along the rest of the Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Plato to question everything, to question authority, to question why people believe something they believe, to question the gods, right? To question the elders. Right? Socrates plays into all of that. He's a philosopher who's from Athens, and him and the other Greek philosophers ask people to question everything in their lives. Don't just because someone says something, don't take it to heart. Question it. Is this true? Do I have to follow this? Right? That's Socrates and the Greek philosophers. Remember, at the end of his life, he's forced to commit suicide, right? Because people thought that he was perverting, right? He was changing the minds of Greek youth to become rebels. So they forced him to commit suicide. Julius Caesar, remember, he's the Roman general who declares himself dictator for life. He's not the first Roman emperor, but he is only dictator for life. Okay, and remember, then he's stabbed to death by senators in the Roman Senate. Julius Caesar, Roman general who makes himself dictator for life. And then his nephew / his adopted son, Augustus, he is the first Roman emperor, Augustus. Okay, he was born with the name Octavian, but once he wins the Civil War and becomes the first emperor of Rome, he changes his name into Augustus. So Augustus is the first emperor of Rome. Constantine, another Roman emperor. Remember, he's the one who, as he's dying, converts to Christianity on his deathbed. He's the first Roman emperor to become Christian. Right? And he's the emperor who ends the persecution of Christians. Right? Finally, he passes edicts that says you can no longer just go out and torture and kill and discriminate against Christian people. Right? That's Constantine. On his deathbed, he converts to Christianity. Jesus, right? You should all know who Jesus is. Okay, founder of Christianity. Jesus. Right? That's why he is significant. Right? Just like the Buddha, he creates a new world religion. Okay? Attila the Hun, right? He's a barbarian who invades with his army, invades Rome. Attila the Hun. He's one of those barbarians who plays a huge factor in the fall of the Roman Empire. That's why he's significant. And his invasions help the empire crumble and fall. Attila the Hun. And then we got Ashoka. Remember, he's the Indian emperor who becomes Buddhist. That's Ashoka. He converts to Buddhism and he feels ashamed of what he's done in the past, right? Killing his opponents. He converts to Buddhism and changes. Right? He promises to be a just and a fair ruler after he converts to Buddhism. Right? That's Ashoka. Okay, the map, you already have the map completed, but make sure you review your map. Okay, please make sure you review your map. And then let's go down here. Okay. Okay, we're gonna focus on only some of these. We're gonna focus on the more important ones in terms of the test, because we only have a few minutes left. All right. How far east does Alexander the Great go, and what happens to his empire after his death? All right, remember, in the ancient Greek world, past India, the Greeks didn't really know what was there. All they had were myths and stories. So India is the last place that Alexander goes, and that's how far east he goes. And he's not sure what is beyond India. So Alexander the Great goes east to India. That's the farthest he gets. Remember, and after his empire, after he dies, his empire is divided divided for his generals, and the empire eventually crumbles because it is divided. Okay, so his empire is divided, and eventually it falls after his death. Why did the Roman emperors persecute Christians again? Because they threatened Roman rule. Right? Roman emperors persecuted Christians because they threatened Roman rule, because they would not follow the religious rules of the empire. They would not pay taxes to build Roman temples. They would not pay tribute to the Roman gods. That is why the Roman emperors persecuted Christians. Hey, what? Let's go back up here. Okay. Alexander the Great. Remember, he has the city of Alexandria. Remember? So let's go. I went up here back to the historical figures. Alexander the Great, he creates the city of Alexandria. Right? And remember, in Alexandria, there is the library of Alexandria, and there is one of the wonders of the ancient world, right? The Pharos, the huge lighthouse, right, that guides ships into the massive port of the city. So again, write that underneath where you see Alexander the Great. Right, creates the city of Alexandria, and in that city, right, was the library of Alexandria and something called the Pharos, right, the enormous lighthouse called the Pharos. Yeah. All right. See you guys. Take care. Remember, test is tomorrow. Probably Friday.
What time? Because I want to do Friday at lunch.
You're leaving?
No, like I have to do something else during lunch on Sunday.
Oh no, you're just gonna make it up in class on Friday.
Oh,
Okay. See ya.